Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into today's story. The air was thick with the sounds of clinking silverware and quiet conversations as the elegant restaurant in downtown New York hummed with life. Soft, warm lighting bathed the dining area, casting gentle reflections on the polished glass windows. The scene seemed to hum with an unspoken energy, where every dish looked like a work of art, and every guest seemed to exude confidence and style. But not everyone felt they belonged in this world. Sophia stood near the entrance, her heart racing as she scanned the room, her hand nervously adjusting the straps of her dress. Her shoes, scuffed from too many days on the street, were hardly a match for the high-end stilettos worn by the other women in the room. The second-hand dress she wore clung to her like a secret she couldn't escape. Her fingers trembled as she readjusted her apron, the one she had tied around her waist to cover the imperfections, to hide the reality of her life. She took a deep breath and mumbled to herself, "I promised Jenny I would do this." But as she stepped inside, the reality of what she had promised to her best friend hit her harder than ever. She had never felt more out of place. Her eyes quickly darted across the restaurant, landing on a sharply dressed man sitting alone at a table in the corner. His dark hair was neatly styled, and his posture was perfect. He appeared to be distracted, scrolling through his phone, but something about him drew Sophia closer. "He must be Kevin," she whispered under her breath. With a quick swallow, she approached him, trying to calm the nervous fluttering in her stomach. "Hi, you must be Kevin," she said, her voice faltering slightly as she smiled brightly, hoping her nerves wouldn't show. The man blinked and looked up at her, startled, as if she had pulled him from some deep thought. Hi. "I'm not Kevin," he replied slowly, his gaze flickering between her face and the empty chair across from him. Sophia's face turned crimson as the realization hit her. "Oh my God," she muttered, her heart sinking. "I'm so sorry. I've sat at the wrong table." Before he could say another word, she stood up abruptly, grabbing her coat, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. But before she could leave, the man stood too, his voice soft but firm. "Wait. It's okay. Don't worry about it." Sophia hesitated for a moment, feeling the heat of the moment settle into a strange, uncomfortable silence. She glanced back at him, her eyes wide with the kind of vulnerability she hated to show. "I really am sorry," she said again, her voice small. The man smiled faintly, his eyes softening as he nodded. "No harm done," he said, his tone casual, yet there was something in his expression that made Sophia pause. He wasn't like the other men she'd met before, the ones who always looked down on her for her background or the way she dressed. There was something different about him. And so, she lingered. They began to talk, the conversation flowing surprisingly easily, despite the awkward start. She told him about her life as a waitress, the struggles with paying rent, and her dream of one day opening her own art gallery. And although she didn't know it yet, she had just met Liam Parker, the tech millionaire, the man she would never have imagined would walk into her life. As the evening continued, Sophia tried not to think too much about the fact that she had mistaken him for someone else. She laughed nervously at her own mistake, talking about her struggles, her ambitions, and her dreams. She had never felt so comfortable with someone she barely knew. But as the night wore on, something began to shift. Liam wasn't like anyone else she had ever met. There was a genuine kindness in his eyes, something far beyond the polished surface of his suit and his confident demeanor. She found herself drawn to him, despite the walls she'd built around her heart. And little did she know, as they continued to talk, the person she had mistakenly sat with would change her life forever. But for now, all she knew was that in this strange, fleeting moment, she had found someone who didn't judge her for what she wore, or what she did, or even who she was supposed to be. As the night drew to a close, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a random mistake. It felt like fate, pulling them together in the most unexpected of ways. but what she didn't realize yet was that Liam had his own secrets, and the truth about who he really was would soon come crashing down on her world. But for now, all she could do was smile and let the evening linger, just for a little while longer. The next morning, Sophia woke up to the sound of her alarm ringing softly in her small apartment. The sunlight filtered in through the blinds, casting a warm glow on the worn furniture around her. She groggily reached for her phone, her hand brushing against the pile of bills and reminders on the nightstand. With a deep sigh, she silenced the alarm, her eyes lingering on the message from her best friend, Jenny, reminding her about the blind date. Sophia smiled weakly as she got out of bed, her mind still spinning from last night's chance encounter. She had met Liam, a man who looked like he belonged in another world, a world she couldn't even imagine. The memory of his calm, forgiving demeanor haunted her. He didn't judge her for her worn-out dress or the roughness in her voice. In fact, it felt like she could talk to him about anything. But now, she had to remind herself that he wasn't just anyone. He wasn't the kind of man who would be interested in someone like her. He was far above her station. After all, who would look twice at a waitress with a second-hand dress and big dreams that would probably never come true? As she prepared breakfast, she found herself thinking back to the small moments of their conversation. He hadn't seemed at all bothered by her mistake. He had even smiled at her, as though it wasn't the biggest embarrassment of her life. "It's okay," he had said. It kept playing in her mind like a soft echo. Sophia shook her head, trying to push the thought away. She had to stay grounded. She couldn't afford to get lost in some fantasy. She had responsibilities, bills to pay, and dreams she couldn't afford to chase. Yet, there was something about the way he had looked at her, something that made her feel seen. Later that day, Sophia found herself back in the bakery, her hands busy with dough and flour as she tried to focus on her work. The familiar rhythm of kneading the dough brought her some comfort, but she couldn't shake the nagging thought of Liam. Why had he smiled at her the way he did? Why hadn't he immediately dismissed her? She wasn't even sure if he knew who she really was. In fact, she hadn't told him a single thing about herself, beyond the fact that she worked at the bakery. Her thoughts were interrupted when the bell above the door rang, signaling the arrival of a customer. Sophia looked up and froze. There he was again. Liam. He stepped inside, dressed in his usual sharp suit, his presence commanding the room in a way that felt both familiar and jarring. He smiled at her, his eyes meeting hers across the room, and for a second, it felt like time stood still. "Hey, Sophia," he said, his voice warm and casual, as though nothing had changed since their first meeting. "I didn't expect to see you here." His gaze lingered on her for a moment longer than necessary, and she felt the familiar heat rise in her cheeks. Sophia's mouth went dry. "Liam, hi," she said, forcing a smile, trying to ignore the awkwardness that immediately set in. "What can I get for you today?" He glanced at the menu board behind her but seemed distracted. "I was thinking about trying something new today." "Surprise me." He leaned against the counter casually, his eyes never leaving her face. Sophia hesitated, caught off guard. She was still trying to process the fact that he had walked in here, to her bakery, as though it was the most natural thing in the world. What was he doing here? Why was he here? "You sure about that?" she asked, trying to break the tension with a light-hearted joke. "You're trusting me with your lunch?" She gestured to the menu board, hoping it would help ease the sudden heaviness in the air. Liam smiled again, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I trust you," he said simply. "I like surprises." The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, everything else in the world faded away. Sophia was reminded again of how different he was from anyone she had ever met. She quickly turned to prepare his order, trying to distract herself from the growing confusion inside her. As she moved around the counter, she found herself stealing glances at him. He was tall, with dark hair and an air of confidence that bordered on intimidating. But there was something else, something warm about him. He wasn't just another rich guy who thought he could buy his way into people's lives. There was a kindness about him, and that made Sophia feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. As she placed his coffee and pastry in front of him, she couldn't help but ask, "So, what brings you to this side of town?" It was a simple question, but she knew the answer already. He didn't belong here, not in this small, cozy bakery tucked away from the busy streets. Liam took a sip of his coffee, his eyes never leaving hers. "I've been meaning to check out your place for a while," he said, his tone casual, but there was a hint of something deeper in his voice. "I've heard good things about you." Sophia blinked, surprised. "Heard good things about me," she repeated, her voice cracking slightly. "From who?" "From around town," he replied with a shrug, as though it was nothing. "I like to support local businesses, especially the ones with a story. Yours is the kind of place that feels real. Authentic." He paused for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly. "I think people like that kind of thing." Sophia didn't know how to respond to that. A part of her wanted to believe him, but another part of her couldn't. It was just too good to be true. Maybe he was just being polite. He didn't know her story, he didn't know what it took for her to even get this far. And yet, there was something in his words that made her heart skip a beat. Maybe he wasn't like the others. As she continued to work, her mind raced. Liam was here. In her bakery. Why? What did he want? Was he here just to be kind, or was there more to this? She couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a chance encounter. No, this was something else, something bigger. And whether she liked it or not, she was about to find out what. The next few days passed in a blur, but Sophia couldn't shake the memory of Liam from her mind. He had been in her bakery every day since their first meeting, always ordering something different and lingering longer than necessary, as if he was genuinely interested in her company. Every time their eyes met, her heart would flutter, and she would quickly look away, trying to focus on the task at hand. But it wasn't easy. He had a way of making her feel special, like she mattered. And for someone like her, that was a rare thing. Despite her best efforts to keep things professional, Sophia found herself looking forward to his visits. Each time he walked through the door, a strange sense of excitement would stir inside her. But the deeper she went into these unspoken feelings, the more she reminded herself that she couldn't afford to get attached. He wasn't like anyone she knew. He was different. He was rich, successful, and out of her league. She was just a waitress in a small bakery, nothing more. One afternoon, as she was arranging a fresh batch of pastries behind the counter, Liam walked in, his presence as commanding as always. But today was different. Today, he wasn't alone. He was accompanied by a man in a sharp suit who carried himself with the same air of authority that Liam did. Sophia immediately felt her stomach tighten. What was going on? Was Liam here on business? Was he going to stop coming to the bakery now that he had other things to focus on? "Hey, Sophia," Liam said as he approached the counter, his smile warm but his eyes carrying a hint of something more serious. "I'd like you to meet someone. This is James. He's a business associate of mine." James extended his hand with a polite but reserved smile. "Nice to meet you," he said, his grip firm. "Liam speaks highly of you." Sophia hesitated for a moment before shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you too," she said, her voice slightly shaky as she tried to maintain her composure. But the unease she felt was impossible to ignore. What was going on here? "We're actually looking at a potential partnership," Liam continued, his gaze still on Sophia. "James has been helping me with a new project, and we were thinking it might be a good idea to involve your bakery in some way." Sophia blinked, taken aback. "My bakery?" she asked, trying to keep the surprise out of her voice. "What kind of partnership are you talking about?" James smiled slightly. "We're thinking about expanding our network of local businesses, bringing more exposure to smaller shops like yours," he explained. "Liam's vision is to create a connection between businesses in the community, so everyone benefits." Sophia was still in shock. She had never expected anything like this. Her bakery was small. It was her sanctuary, her escape from the demands of her family and the world she had run away from. And now here was Liam, offering her something that could change everything. But as the reality of the situation began to sink in, so did the fear. What if this meant losing the very thing she had worked so hard to build? What if it meant giving up the simple life she had grown so fond of? She turned to Liam, searching his face for answers. "What do you mean exactly?" she asked, her voice a little more hesitant now. Liam's smile softened, and he stepped closer to the counter. "I want to help you," he said quietly, his eyes locking with hers. "You've built something special here. And I know it's not easy. I've been in your shoes, trying to make something out of nothing. I want to give you the tools to grow, without losing what makes this place yours." His words lingered in the air, and for a moment, Sophia was speechless. She had always dreamed of growing her bakery, of one day expanding and maybe even opening more locations. But she had never imagined it would happen like this. With someone like Liam. Someone who was so far out of her league. She swallowed hard, trying to process everything he had just said. "But why me? There are plenty of other businesses you could partner with." Liam smiled again, this time with more warmth. "Because you're different," he said simply. "You've got something real here, Sophia. Something I can't find anywhere else. And I think it's worth investing in." For a moment, she was caught between the desire to jump at this opportunity and the fear of losing herself in it. She had worked so hard to create a space where she could be herself, away from the pressures of her family and the life they expected her to lead. And now, here was this offer, this chance to change everything. But could she trust him? Could she trust herself not to get swept up in his world? The silence between them stretched on, and Sophia's mind raced. Liam's offer was tempting, more than tempting. It was the kind of opportunity she'd always dreamed of, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to take that leap. She wasn't sure if she was ready to risk everything for a future that might not even be hers to control. She took a deep breath, finally breaking the silence. I need some time to think about it," she said, her voice steady, though her heart was pounding in her chest. Liam nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Of course. Take all the time you need." As he and James turned to leave, Sophia stood behind the counter, the weight of the decision ahead of her heavy on her shoulder. Could she really take that step into his world? Or was this just another way for her to lose herself in someone else's dream? The next few days were filled with uncertainty as Sophia tried to figure out what to do. The offer from Liam and his business associate had been on her mind constantly, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't make up her mind. The thought of expanding her bakery, of taking it to the next level, was tempting. But she didn't know if she was ready to lose the simplicity she had worked so hard to preserve. She had always been determined to make it on her own terms, to avoid getting sucked into the world her family had planned for her. The bakery was her sanctuary, her escape from the pressure to live up to her family's expectations. She didn't want to let go of that, but the more she thought about Liam's offer, the more it seemed like the perfect chance to make her dreams come true. Yet, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that came with accepting help from someone like him. Could she really trust him? Could she trust herself not to get lost in his world of wealth and business? One afternoon, as she was closing the bakery for the day, she heard the familiar sound of the doorbell chime. She turned, expecting another regular customer, but instead, it was Liam. He stood in the doorway, looking as confident as ever in his well-tailored suit. He smiled at her, and for a moment, everything else in the world seemed to fade away. It was just him, and just her. "Hey, Sophia," he said, his voice warm, though there was a hint of concern in his eyes. "Can we talk for a minute?" Sophia hesitated, wiping her hands on her apron. She had been avoiding him for the past few days, unsure of what to say, unsure of how to handle everything. But now, here he was again, standing in front of her, as if waiting for an answer. "Of course," she replied, her voice a little more uncertain than she would have liked. She stepped toward him, trying to act casual, but her heart was racing. Liam stepped inside and glanced around the bakery, his gaze lingering on the familiar, homey feel of the place. This place is something special, you know, he said, his tone low and sincere. It's not just the pastries, it's the atmosphere. The people who come here, they can feel it. Sophia smiled softly, though her stomach fluttered at his words. I've worked hard to make it feel like home, she said quietly, the pride in her voice evident. It's my little piece of peace in the world. Liam nodded, his eyes softening as he took a step closer to her. I know. That's what makes it so great. But I also know that you've got bigger dreams. Dreams that could be a reality if you just let someone help you take that next step. Sophia bit her lip, feeling a wave of uncertainty wash over her. She had dreamed of growing her bakery, of making it a staple in the community, but she had always been afraid of losing what made it hers. I'm not sure I'm ready to give up everything for something bigger, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam reached out, his hand gently resting on the counter between them. I'm not asking you to give it all up, he said, his voice steady and reassuring. I'm just offering you a chance to grow, to do more with what you've already built. It's your bakery, Sophia. I'm not trying to take that away from you. She stared at him for a long moment, his words sinking in. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that this wasn't just about business, that it wasn't just another deal for him. But deep down, she still feared that accepting his help would mean losing control, losing the very essence of what made her bakery so special. I need to think about it, she said finally, her voice firm, but the doubt still lingered in her chest. I appreciate the offer, Liam. I really do. But I need some time. Liam's smile remained, but his eyes seemed to soften with understanding. Take all the time you need, he said. I'm not going anywhere. I just want you to know that the offer's there, and when you're ready, we can make it happen. Sophia nodded, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts as he turned and walked toward the door. She watched him leave, her heart heavy with the weight of the decision she had to make. Was she ready to step into a world that felt so far removed from her own? Was she ready to risk everything she had worked for, all for the chance of something bigger? As the door closed behind him, Sophia stood there, feeling a mix of emotions, confusion, fear, and, beneath it all, a small spark of hope. Maybe this was her chance. Maybe it was time for her to take a leap of faith, but for now, she would have to wait, to think it over, and to figure out if she was ready to let someone else into her world or if she would continue to build her future on her own. Days passed, and Sophia couldn't shake the conversation she had with Liam. It echoed in her mind, replaying his words over and over again. Take all the time you need. But with each passing day, the pressure to decide grew heavier. The bakery had been her world for so long, but the idea of expanding, of turning it into something more, kept creeping back into her thoughts. It was tempting. More than tempting, it was a dream come true. But with that dream came the fear of losing everything she had worked so hard for. Would she still be herself in a world where everything was bigger, more complex? She found herself staring at the window of the bakery one quiet morning, the street outside bustling with activity. The sound of the city filtered in, but it felt distant. Her mind wasn't on the crowds or the chatter of people passing by. It was on the decision she had yet to make. She knew that if she said yes to Liam's offer, her life would change. It was inevitable. The question was she ready for that change? Or was she too afraid to take the risk? Just as she was lost in thought, the door opened with the familiar chime, and Liam walked in. His presence seemed to fill the room, his sharp suit and confident stride unmistakable. But this time, there was something different in the way he looked at her. It was as if he knew she was on the edge of making a decision. His eyes softened, and he smiled, but there was a seriousness to his expression. Hey, Sophia, he said, his voice calm but with an edge of concern. I just wanted to check in, see how you're doing. Have you had any more time to think about the offer? His gaze was steady, waiting for her answer, but there was an unspoken understanding between them. Knew she was torn. Sophia took a deep breath, her heart beating faster. She had been avoiding this moment for days, but she couldn't keep running from it. She had to face it. She had to face him. I've been thinking about it a lot, she said, her voice steady, though her hands trembled slightly as she wiped them on her apron. And I've realized I can't keep pretending that I don't want more. I do. I want to make this place bigger, I want to grow, but I'm scared. Liam nodded, his expression softening. I get it, he said quietly. Change is scary. It's always easier to stay where you are, to keep things simple. But sometimes, taking that leap is what makes you realize what you're truly capable of. You don't have to lose yourself in this process, Sophia. I'm here to help you, not take over. Sophia looked at him, feeling the weight of his words. Was it really possible to grow without losing herself? Could she really take that step into something bigger without compromising what made her and the bakery so special? The doubt still lingered, but deep down, she knew she couldn't keep standing still. She had worked too hard for this dream. She had too much passion to let it slip away. After a long pause, she finally spoke. I'm ready, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I want to take that step. I want to see what this place could become. But I need to know that I'm not going to lose myself in it. I need to know that this is still going to be my bakery. Liam's smile grew, a genuine warmth in his eyes. I promise you, Sophia. This will always be your bakery. I'm just here to help you get to the next level. The vision will be yours, and I'll support you in every way I can. You don't have to do this alone. Sophia's heart lifted at his words. Maybe, just maybe, this was the opportunity she had been waiting for. The chance to grow, to change, and to become something more without losing who she was. She took a deep breath, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. The decision wasn't as easy as she had hoped, but it was the right one. Okay, she said, her voice stronger now. Let's do it. She met his gaze, a sense of determination building inside her. Let's take this bakery to the next level. Together. Liam smiled, his eyes brightening with pride. That's what I like to hear. As they shook hands, Sophia felt a shift inside her. It was as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face it. Ready to face whatever came next. The journey ahead would be difficult, and there were still many challenges to overcome, but Sophia knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning, and no matter what, she would make sure her bakery stayed true to the heart and soul that made it so special. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of meetings, plans, and adjustments. Sophia had made the decision to take Liam up on his offer, and now, the real work had begun. The bakery was bustling with new ideas, new equipment, and an energy that Sophia hadn't felt in years. She was both excited and terrified. Every day, she worked tirelessly, learning new ways to expand the business, but still trying to hold on to the essence of what had made the bakery her home in the first place. But as the days passed, Sophia found herself feeling more and more overwhelmed. Liam had been there every step of the way, offering guidance, helping to bring her vision to life, and even involving his team in the renovation. The bakery was transforming before her eyes. Yet, no matter how many steps forward they took, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that she was losing control. The bakery was becoming bigger, more professional, and she was unsure if she could keep up. One afternoon, as she stood behind the counter, watching a team of workers prepare for the upcoming opening of the new, expanded bakery, Liam walked in. He was dressed in his usual sharp suit, but there was a softness to his expression, a look that said he knew she was struggling. Hey, Sophia, Liam said, his voice gentle as he approached her. How are you holding up? Sophia forced a smile, trying to keep up appearances. I'm fine, she replied, her voice betraying the exhaustion she felt. Just a little busy, you know. We're getting closer to opening day, and there's still so much to do. Liam studied her for a moment, then nodded, understanding. I know it's a lot, he said quietly. But I can see what you've built here. You've got something really special, Sophia. You're doing great. Sophia's heart warmed at his words, but she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was slipping away from her. I don't know if I can keep doing this, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel like I'm losing what made this place mine. The heart of it. The soul. Liam stepped closer, his eyes soft with concern. I get it, he said, his voice calm. You're worried that everything is changing too fast, that you're losing yourself in the process. But that's not going to happen, you're still in control. This is your bakery, your vision. We're just helping you bring it to life. The heart and soul of this place are still here, and they always will be. Sophia looked up at him, her eyes searching his face for reassurance. But what if I lose it? What if this becomes just another business, another project that doesn't mean anything to me anymore? Liam smiled softly, reaching out to touch her arm in a reassuring gesture. You won't lose it, he said firmly. This place means something to you because you've put everything into it. That won't change. It's about finding balance. You don't have to do everything alone, but you still get to decide what this bakery becomes. For the first time in a long while, Sophia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had been so focused on the fear of change that she had forgotten the reason she had started all of this. The bakery was hers because it was born from her passion, her heart. And no matter how much it grew, no matter how many changes came, that wouldn't change. It was still her dream. You're right, she said softly, her voice gaining strength. I can do this. I just need to trust myself. Liam's smile widened. Exactly, he said. And you've got a lot of people who believe in you, me included. Sophia took a deep breath, the uncertainty in her heart beginning to fade. Thank you, Liam, she said, her voice steady now. For everything. For believing in me. Liam nodded. It's my pleasure. But the credit goes to you, Sophia. You're the one who built this. As the two of them stood there, a sense of peace settled over her. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time, she felt ready to face it. She had the support she needed, and most importantly, she had found the strength to trust herself again. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, and there would still be challenges to face. But Sophia knew one thing for sure: she wasn't alone. And with Liam's help, she could take the next step toward turning her dream into something even bigger without losing what made it hers. The days leading up to the grand opening of the newly renovated bakery were filled with a mix of excitement and nerves. Sophia had spent every waking hour making sure everything was perfect. The space had been transformed, now sleek and modern, but it still held on to the cozy, welcoming atmosphere that had always made it feel like home. The lines between the old and the new blurred, and Sophia couldn't help but feel proud of what she had created. But there was still a lingering doubt in her mind: would the community embrace the changes? Would they still see her bakery as a place of comfort, or had it become something unrecognizable? The night before the opening, Sophia sat in the quiet bakery, the lights dimmed as she wiped down the counter for the last time. The shop was empty, save for her thoughts, which were running wild. The weight of the decision she had made opening herself up to Liam's vision and help had been heavy, but she had never felt more alive. Yet, the thought of being under the spotlight made her stomach turn. She had always worked hard to keep her life simple, to stay out of the limelight. Now, everything was changing, and she wasn't sure how she felt about it. The door opened with a soft chime, and Sophia looked up to see Liam walking in. He had been there almost every day, offering advice and encouragement, but today was different. There was a sense of calm in the air as he approached her. Hey, Liam said, his voice soothing as he leaned against the counter. How are you holding up? His eyes were kind, understanding the nerves she was feeling. Sophia smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I'm nervous, she admitted, her voice soft. It's a big step. I've been working so hard to make this place what it is, but now it's different. What if people don't like the changes? She paused, meeting his gaze. What if they don't come back? She had a sinking feeling in her stomach as she voiced her fears. Liam smiled, his expression gentle but confident. You've done something incredible here, Sophia, he said, his voice steady. The changes are just part of the journey. You're giving people more of what they love, not taking anything away. He took a step closer, his eyes filled with sincerity. And the people who love this place? They'll come back. You've built something that's real. The heart of this bakery hasn't changed. His words felt like a reassurance she didn't know she needed, and yet, it grounded her in the moment. Sophia took a deep breath, letting his words sink in. The fear hadn't completely gone away, but it felt a little easier to breathe now. I hope you're right, she said softly, still unsure but grateful for his unwavering belief in her. This place means everything to me. I just want to make sure I don't lose what made it so special. She paused, meeting his eyes again. And I don't want to lose myself in it, either. It's hard to balance everything. Her voice trailed off, a little unsure of her next words. Liam nodded, understanding exactly where she was coming from. I know. But you don't have to do it alone. I'm here to help you every step of the way. Just remember you built this. You know what it needs to succeed, and you've already proven that you can make it work. He smiled warmly, his confidence in her unwavering. Sophia's heart lifted at his words. She had known from the start that he was different. He believed in her in a way that felt genuine, without asking for anything in return. She couldn't help but feel grateful for the support he had shown her, for the way he had helped bring her vision to life. Thank you, she said, her voice steady now, a newfound strength in her words. I don't know what I would have done without you. I've been so scared of what's next, but now, I feel a little more ready. Liam smiled. You're ready for whatever comes next, he said with conviction. And whatever it is, you're going to handle it just fine. Just keep believing in yourself the way I believe in you. His words were like a promise, and Sophia held on to them as if they were the final piece of the puzzle she had been searching for. The two of them stood there for a moment, the weight of the night settling into a quiet understanding between them. The bakery had changed, yes, but so had she. And as the grand opening drew nearer, Sophia realized that she wasn't just opening the doors to a new business. She was opening the door to her future that she would face with confidence, with strength, and with the support of those who truly believed in her. The grand opening day finally arrived, and the bakery was buzzing with energy. The line outside stretched down the street as loyal customers, new faces, and curious onlookers eagerly awaited their chance to step inside and see the transformation for themselves. Sophia stood behind the counter, her hands shaking slightly as she arranged pastries in the display case. She had spent the entire morning making sure everything was perfect, but now, with the grand opening in full swing, she could feel the weight of the moment settling in. This was the beginning of something new, something bigger than she had ever imagined. But there was a nagging thought in the back of her mind: what if it wasn't enough? What if the people didn't love the changes? What if she had sacrificed too much? As the doors opened and the first few customers stepped inside, Sophia quickly snapped herself out of her thoughts. She smiled brightly, greeting the people who had come to support her, to support the bakery that had become so much more than just a business. The scent of fresh pastries filled the air, the sound of chatter and laughter surrounded her, and for a moment, she allowed herself to just enjoy the moment. But then, just as quickly, the doubts crept back in. Was everything going according to plan? Would the new layout, the new menu items, the expanded space, all meet expectations? Just as she was about to step back and take a deep breath, Liam walked through the door, a calm presence amid the chaos. He had been with her every step of the way, from the first planning stages to the renovations. And now, here he was, standing in the doorway with a proud smile on his face. He looked around at the bustling bakery, then met her eyes, his expression full of encouragement. You did it, Liam said, his voice filled with admiration. Look at this. It's incredible. His gaze swept over the busy shop, clearly impressed with what she had accomplished. Sophia tried to smile, but the weight of the day was starting to hit her. I hope people like it, she said, her voice wavering slightly. I've worked so hard, but what if it's not enough? She glanced around at the long line of customers, some of them already enjoying their pastries, but the anxiety still clung to her like a heavy cloak. Liam took a step closer to her, his eyes steady and comforting. "It's more than enough, Sophia," he said softly. "You've built something real here. People are responding because they can feel the love and care you've put into every detail." He paused, giving her a reassuring smile. "This isn't just about the space or the menu. It's about you. You're the heart of this place, and that's what people are coming for." He placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch grounding her. Sophia felt a wave of relief wash over her. His words, simple but heartfelt, reminded her of why she had started this journey in the first place. She hadn't done it for the fame or the money. She had done it because this bakery, this place, was a reflection of her passion, her dreams, and her determination to build something of her own. It wasn't just about the pastries, it was about the connections she had built with the people who walked through her doors every day. She wasn't just serving food, she was serving warmth, comfort, and community. As the day went on, the bakery continued to fill with customers, and Sophia found herself caught up in the rhythm of it all. She moved from the counter to the kitchen, making sure everything ran smoothly, greeting regulars, and meeting new faces. There was a sense of pride in her chest as she looked around, seeing people enjoying the space she had created. It wasn't just a business, it was her heart laid out for the world to see. And it was thriving. At the end of the day, as the last customer left and the lights in the bakery dimmed, Sophia stood behind the counter, taking it all in. Liam had already left, but his words stuck with her. "You're the heart of this place." She smiled to herself, a sense of peace settling over her. She had made it. She had taken the leap, and she had built something beautiful, something that would continue to grow. And no matter what the future held, she knew one thing for sure: this was only the beginning. As the weeks passed after the grand opening, the bakery continued to thrive. Sophia watched with a growing sense of pride as her hard work began to pay off. Customers continued to flock in, many returning after their first visit, sharing their experiences with others, and creating a community that felt just as welcoming as the original small space had. The expansion had brought new life to the bakery, and with it, a renewed sense of purpose for Sophia. She was finally realizing that all the changes she had once feared weren't just necessary, they were part of her growth. But as she stood behind the counter, looking out at the full bakery, she couldn't help but reflect on everything she had been through, the doubts, the struggles, and the fears she had faced at every turn. There had been moments when she almost turned back, when she questioned whether she was capable of doing this. But now, with the bustling space and the satisfied smiles of her customers, she knew she had made the right decision. It wasn't just the bakery that had changed. Sophia had changed too. She had learned to trust herself more, to believe in her ability to balance ambition with heart, and to find strength in the support of those around her. Most importantly, she had learned that she didn't have to face her fears alone. Liam had been there from the beginning, believing in her when she couldn't believe in herself. He had given her the opportunity to see the potential she never knew she had. And now, as she looked around at the people who had come together to make this bakery a success, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. One quiet evening, after the last customer had left, Liam walked in. It had become a familiar sight over the past few weeks. He had been there to support her at every turn, offering advice when needed and stepping back when she wanted to make decisions on her own. But tonight, there was something different in his eyes. A softness. A pride. "You did it," Liam said, his voice full of admiration as he stood in the doorway, looking at the bakery. "This place, this dream you've made it real." Sophia turned, her heart swelling at his words. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "You helped me see what was possible. I wasn't sure I could make it happen, but now I know I can." Liam stepped forward, his smile warm as he walked toward her. "You always could," he said gently. "You just needed to see it for yourself." As Sophia looked around the bakery, she realized just how far she had come. This place wasn't just a business, it was a reflection of her journey, her dreams, and her belief in herself. She had stepped into the unknown and found strength, not just in herself, but in the people she had chosen to trust along the way. And with that, Sophia realized that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something much bigger. Her future was wide open, filled with opportunities to grow, to build, and to make an even greater impact on the community she had come to love. She had found her place in the world and she was ready to embrace whatever came next. So, Liam said, breaking her thoughts, "Are you ready for the next chapter?" Sophia smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in a long time. "I think I am." And with that, they both knew that the journey wasn't over. It was just beginning.